This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
All right, and welcome to the GSMC Sports Podcast. This episode is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. And as always, I am your host, Jesse Tapia. All right, it's Thursday's edition of the show. It's May 24th, and here's what we got going on today. First segment, we had Game 5 between the Cavs and Celtics. Cavs had all the momentum, I feel, going into that game, given that they won Games 3 and Games 4 and pretty much just beat down on Boston. I mean, Boston looked terrible, honestly, in those games. But, of course, I'm not sure what it is. The home team ended up winning, so we'll be talking about that for the first segment. Second segment, we'll be talking about Dez Bryant. He's still unsigned, okay? And we're going to go over a couple of other things that are going on in the NFL, just some OTA stuff, I guess. We're going to talk about Joe Flacco a bit, pretty much how his season needs to go, I guess, in order to keep Lamar Jackson off of him. So we'll be talking about a range of different things in the second segment. Third segment, we'll be talking about the All-NBA teams. We had those come out. I'll give my thoughts on that. Anthony Davis made the first team, so allows him to get that super max, I believe, after next year with the Pelicans. We'll be talking about what that means for, I guess, the Pelicans, Anthony Davis, and teams who probably wanted to end up trading for him. And then for the fourth segment, we'll talk about anything else going on in the world of sports, as we always do. All right, so let's get into it. Like I said, we had Cavs Celtics. I picked Cavs in this game. Of course, I was wrong. Celtics ended up winning 96-83. For the Cavs, you had LeBron James with 26 points, 5 assists, 10 rebounds, shot 11 of 22, 1 of 6 from the three-point line. Kevin Love had 14 points, 2 assists, 2 steals, also a block, and 7 rebounds. He shot 6 of 13, 2 of 7 from the three-point line. Tristan Thompson couldn't really get it going in this one. All right, he had 1 point, 6 rebounds, shot 0 of 3. George Hill had 7 points, 2 assists, shot 1 of 5. J.R. Smith had 2 points. He shot 1 of 6, 0 of 4 from the three-point line. And then off the bench, you had Larry Nance, who came in for 17 minutes. He had 2 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, and 4 blocks. Also got into it with Marcus Morris a bit. Let's see, you had Jeff Green. He had 8 points, 5 rebounds, shot 3 of 4, 1 of 2 from the three-point line. And then Jordan Clarkson, who got a lot of minutes off the bench. He played 15 minutes, had 8 points, 2 rebounds, shot 3 of 10 from the field, 2 of 7 from the three-point line. And then Kyle Korver, who I don't think played enough. And if anything, he probably, because he did play 19 minutes off the bench, which was the second most. But I feel if Jeff Green's out here getting 26, then you got to figure out a way to get Korver on the court more. All right? Because, I mean, he has been the Cavs' second-best player this postseason for me, so it would make no sense for Ty Lue to pretty much just leave him on the bench after Boston couldn't stop him for Games 3 and Games 4. But nonetheless, yeah, he didn't play that much. He finished with 7 points, shot 2 of 6, 2 of 5 from the three-point line. And then for the Celtics, you had Al Horford with 15 points, 12 rebounds, 1 assist, also had a steal. Shot 4 of 9 from the field, 1 of 2 from the three-point line. Jason Tatum played the most minutes out of anyone on the Celtics. He played 41 minutes and looked like the best player out there. He had 24 points, 4 assists, 4 steals, 2 blocks, 7 rebounds. Shot 7 of 15 and 3 of 7 from the three-point line. Aaron Baines had 6 points, 7 rebounds. He shot 3 of 7. Terry Rozier's been slumping the series. Still hasn't been able to get it going. I mean, he played all right in Games 1 and Games 2, but ever since then, actually, he played well, I think, in Game 2. Game 1, he was pretty off. So, yeah, Games 1, Games 3, Games 4, and Games 5, he hasn't really played well. He finished Game 5 with 8 points, 6 assists, 6 rebounds. Also had 3 steals, but he shot 3 of 15 and 1 of 7 from the three-point line. Jaylen Brown didn't really shoot the ball too well in this one either. He had 17 points, He had 2 assists, 3 rebounds, shot 4 of 15 from the field, 2 of 8 from the three-point line, and then off the bench you had Marcus Morris, who played 37 minutes, which was the second most on the team. He had 13 points, 6 rebounds, shot 5 of 13, 3 of 6 from the three-point line, and then you had Marcus Smart, who shot the ball pretty well in this one. 13 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, 1 steal, shot 5 of 9, 3 of 6 from the three-point line. This was Boston's worst shooting game of the postseason, too. They finished shooting 36% from the field, 33% from 3. The Cavs, they ended up finishing shooting 42% from the field, 26 from 3. All right, and then 63 from the free throw line. Watching this game, I wasn't really sure what to look for, okay? We saw that the home team has won each game now. Boston's taken 3 so far at home, Cleveland with 2, and I figured that this game right here would be a close one. All right, because I figured both teams now have a good idea of what the other team likes to run and whatnot. But it's just, this series has been very, very odd. Okay, it seems that the coaches and players don't know what to do once they're on the road. Okay, first 2 games, we saw Brad Stevens making adjustments. We saw the Celtics playing well, sharing the ball, driving into the paint, kicking it out when they need to. All right, and that's probably one of the biggest reasons why they ended up winning the first 2 games. Games 3 and games 4, you see them completely get away from that, okay? And you see with Cleveland as compared to game 1 and game 2, game 3 and game 4, they're putting a whole lot more effort on defense. They're sharing the ball. Everyone else is getting involved, and everyone's playing well, okay? And the lineups are actually good out there. You're not seeing Jeff Green playing a bunch of minutes. You're not seeing J.R. Smith out there for a whole bunch of minutes. Everyone's pretty much getting the right amount of minutes, and the lineups are working. Then coming back to Game 5, you figure, okay, now these teams know what to do and all that, know how to coach. Yeah, no, it's completely different. Game 5 was basically a repeat of Games 1 or Games 2, okay? I'm not sure really what Ty Lue was thinking in this game, but, I mean, he made a comment after the game. Whereas he was asked about Kyle Korver not playing that many minutes. He says that Kyle Korver's matchup was Semi Ojeleye, and that like with Brad Stevens not playing him in the game, that kind of threw a loop for the Cavs, which I guess confused them a bit or just threw a wrinkle in their game plan. And for some reason, that was why Kyle Korver didn't play. All right. And that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever to me. Okay. I mean, can't these coaches make in-game adjustments? All right. Semi Ojeleye is not playing. I feel like you could still throw Korver out there. It makes no sense to me why that happened. Okay. As a head coach, yeah, there might be wrinkles in your game plan because what the other team is doing, but you still got to adjust on the fly, don't you? I would assume so. All right, so when Ty Lue's coming out and saying, yeah, I didn't play Kyle Korver that much because Boston didn't play one of their players, that makes no sense, especially considering, like I said, Kyle Korver's been the second best player on your team. All right, so now they're heading back to Cleveland, down 3-2, but there is the, I guess, upside to it all that the Celtics are probably the worst road team this postseason. Okay? They've only won 1 game so far. Lost 3 in Milwaukee. Lost 1 in Philly. And they've lost 2 in Cleveland. Okay? So that's what? 1-6? Yeah. So I guess now the consensus should be this series is coming back to Boston for Game 7. All right? But for Game 6, I mean, it's just a matter of something's got to give. Doesn't it? I mean, Boston, are they going to continue to be terrible on the road? It's a possibility. And as for Cleveland, I mean, why is it that they can only turn it up at home? I don't understand. I mean, if you're looking at it, like George Hill, he didn't do anything. Went 1 of 5, had 7 points. J.R. Smith only had 2 points. Tristan Thompson only had 1 point. All right? And then off the bench, you had Jeff Green, who had 8 points. Jeff Green actually played pretty well. I'll give him that. All right? But not playing Korver enough just really didn't make sense to me. So we're just going to have to wait and see about it. Boston did end up making a starting 5 adjustment. They ended up bringing in Aaron Baines to start instead of Marcus Morris. I mean, that was the right move there. I was talking about possibly bringing in Marcus Smart. Obviously, Brad Stevens felt that Aaron Baines needed to be the guy, and he was right. Okay, we saw Aaron Baines making an impact from the start of the game. You obviously saw Tristan Thompson couldn't get it going as far as scoring the ball, and he only finished with 6 rebounds, which might be, I had to double check games 1 and games 2, but 6 rebounds there might be his lowest of the series so far. All right. And I mean, Marcus Morris coming off the bench did help the Celtics. Okay, you needed his scoring there. I mean, he only shot 5 of 13, but nonetheless, he brought in 13 points off the bench. And Marcus Smart, like I say, I mean, it's kind of the wild card. You never really know how well he's going to shoot, but for the sake of this game, he did go 5 of 9 and dropped in 13 points along with Morris. All right. One thing, too, I saw with Boston is that they only went with a 7-man rotation. Smart and Morris were the only ones coming off the bench. There was no Abdel Nader, no Yabusele, no Ojale, no Monroe. And I guess that's what causing confusion for Ty Lue, which still, to me, makes no sense. All right. And I'm curious to see what Boston ends up doing for Game 6. Are they going to be rolling out the same type of rotation? And what's Ty Lue going to do? All right. If Semi Ojeleye not playing is what keeps Kyle Korver on the bench, what exactly game plan do you have in order to get him out there just in case Brad Stevens doesn't play him again? All right. And those are first-year coach mistakes, aren't they? Not being able to make in-game adjustments. I mean, it made no sense to me there. All right, like I said, I mean, Boston never really shot the ball well in this game. I mean, they finished 36% from the field. All right, and let me look at the turnover numbers. Yeah, Cleveland finished with 15 turnovers, Boston with 8. And that's been one of Cleveland's biggest problems, too, is the turnovers, okay? Game 4, they had like 18 turnovers. It didn't matter, though, since they ended up winning. But most of the time, more times than not, when you're out there committing the most turnovers, you're going to struggle to win ball games. All right? But like I said, doesn't all come down to Game 6. But nonetheless, I mean, we got to see if Boston's able to turn it up on the road. And we got to see if Cleveland's able to, start putting together consistent performances. Because by the way the series has gone, the indication is Celtics win in 7, just given that each team has played as poorly as you could on the road. So we'll see what ends up happening. But like I said, Ty Lue made a lot of questionable decisions yesterday. LeBron didn't play as well as you probably could. And turnovers for LeBron have been a big problem too. He finished with 6 turnovers yesterday. And there's a little storyline coming out. Maybe the fatigue is starting to hit him. That's what everyone was talking about yesterday. LeBron said he was fine, so I'm just going to assume LeBron's fine. But I guess the fatigue is something to watch out for. So, yeah, like I said, we got Game 6 coming on Friday. Celtics could end up clinching there, or they have the opportunity to clinch on Sunday in Boston for Game 7 if it comes down to that. All right, I'm sticking with my Celtics in 7 picks, so we'll go from there. But anyways, next up, we'll be talking about some NFL stuff, so stay tuned, and I'll be right back.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. We spent that first segment talking about Cavs Celtics Game 5, and it just seems that, whoever's playing at home is going to pick up the win, all right? And, some teams got to win on the road eventually, right? Whether it be Boston maybe for Game 6 or Cleveland for Game 7, or it's going to be one of those series where home court advantage is literally home court advantage, and if you got home court, you got the win. I'm not sure. We've seen both teams really not play well, not be as well coached on the road, too. All right, Brad Stevens has made some questionable decisions for Games 3 and Games 4. Ty Lue made questionable decisions for Game 5, so we'll see maybe if both teams can bring their A game for Game 6. And that's kind of what we've been waiting for. I mean, we saw the Rockets and Warriors. They played a solid game for Game 4. And that's probably that's the only close game we've seen so far in the conference finals, I guess, is that Game 4 between Houston and Golden State. That game's going to be going on tonight. We'll be previewing that in the 4th segment. But nonetheless, I mean, if you're Boston or you're Cleveland, you're thinking that you want to see Houston in the finals, right? I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of weird. Like, if Houston ended up beating Golden State, you'd obviously think that Houston's the best team out there, but it just seems that maybe Boston or Cleveland can match up well with Houston. I'm not saying they'd go out and win it, but nonetheless, you would probably got more of a chance than you would with the Warriors. All right. So, yeah, we'll see how it all ends up. Like I said, we got Game 5 tonight for the Western Conference Finals, and then Game 6 on Saturday. Game 7 will be on Monday if it ended up happening, and then we got Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals on Friday. And then, if need be, Game 7 on Sunday. So we'll see how the rest of the series plays out. But, I mean, yeah, I don't think there's been any surprises so far. I mean, these are all the teams that everyone expected to make it this far. Now it's just a matter of who's going to end up making it out. All right, and with this Celtics team, I mean, if you're a fan, you got to be excited for this season, just given how well they've played. But also next season, too, when you'll be getting Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward back. Celtics might be a problem unless LeBron ends up going to Philly. But I guess that would just elevate the rivalry even more. In Philly with LeBron will be probably one of the more unstoppable teams. So we'll see what ends up happening. But like I said, NFL, Dez Bryant, still a free agent. All right. And it doesn't seem like there's any big-time interest around there. All right. Seems like Dez Bryant is more so a guy where he probably should have taken the Baltimore Ravens deal. I think it was a multiple-year deal they were offering him. Seems like he decided not to take that because he wanted to bet on himself, take a one-year deal and try and play for a bigger contract after that, which I guess sounds right. But, I mean, there's a point where you got to take whatever comes. All right. And, of course, Dez Bryant still has time and all that. He still got training camp and all. I mean, of course, you never want to see it, but there always is injuries and there always is some team with a need at the wide receiver position. All right. But as of right now, I mean, it just seems like I said, there's no real market for Dez Bryant. I'm looking at the teams right now who possibly could need receivers with cap space. San Francisco's a team, but it just doesn't seem like they're going to be bringing him in. Tennessee also. Let's see, the Bills. There's them. Who else? Baltimore, I think, is done with receivers. Oakland's already got theirs. If I had to say, pick what team Dez Bryant would end up on for week 1, if I had my choice, I'd probably say it is the Buffalo Bills. All right. I'm not sure what their situation is looking like with their rookies so far, if they signed them all and whatnot, but they got $18 million left in cap space, and I'm sure Dez Bryant would probably end up taking a 1-year, $10 to $12 million deal. All right. But even then, so if you're Dez Bryant, you got to think, would you want to go play over in Buffalo where the weather's cold, where you got A.J. McCarron, who hasn't really ever been a starting quarterback in this league, and you got Josh Allen, who could end up playing this season, but it's a matter of how, I guess, McCarron does, or unless they have some little QB competition during training camp. Tennessee would be a nice little spot for Dez Bryant, but I don't really see, I don't know. I could see that happening. They still got $33 million left in cap space, so they still could afford it. All right, him and Corey Davis on both ends. I think that'd be a pretty solid offense. You got Derrick Henry, Deion Lewis as your running backs. All right, then you got how do you say, Marcus Mariota at the quarterback position. Like I said, Dez Bryant and Davis on the outside, along with Delaney Walker. That'd be a solid little situation for Dez Bryant there. All right, and also with San Francisco. But it just seems, I don't know, they're not really looking for any flashy big-name players, it seems. Maybe they're okay with the wide receivers they got now. I think they got Trent Taylor, Goodwin, Garcon, and then Dante Pettis, who they just drafted. So, yeah, I guess they're probably out of the market of going after a guy like Dez Bryant. So, I mean, honestly, I don't think Dez Bryant is a bad player by any means. I just think it wasn't working out in Dallas anymore. And I do think that with whatever team gives him a shot, he will do well. But it's a point where I think he's made his money, meaning I don't think he's getting a big-time contract ever again, unless somehow he were to go to a team and pretty much just look like the old Dez Bryant. So we'll see what ends up happening there. But moving over to Baltimore, you got to think that this is going to be Joe Flacco's last year, right? I believe they can cut him after this year. Don't owe him any more guaranteed money. And with Joe Flacco, I mean, it's just a matter of, is there still an opportunity where he can end up saving his job? I think possibly. Okay. Flacco's been around that franchise for a while, his entire career. He's also helped win them a Super Bowl, which ever since then, I guess, ever since the Super Bowl year, Flacco's really taken a step back. Okay. We used to have the conversations of whether or not Joe Flacco was elite. Okay. And at one point, I mean, maybe he was, but looking at his numbers, I mean, they were never, I don't think they were ever elite. Okay. And Flacco, I mean, he was a good quarterback. I'm looking at him. Let's see. I think 2012 is when they ended up winning the Super Bowl. Was that 2012, I believe? Let's see. I think that was back in. I think that was 2012. All right. So yeah, 2012 is when they won the Super Bowl. That year he threw for 3,800 yards, 22 touchdowns, and then he had 10 picks. All right. Let me see if I can find a better statistical year. I guess a better year would be 2016, I guess, but he threw for 4,000 yards, threw for 2 less touchdowns, and 5 more interceptions, I guess. No. I mean, looking at his numbers, he's never been elite. All right, 2013, the year after they won the Super Bowl, he throws for 19 touchdowns, 22 picks. I guess 2014, he had a pretty solid year, nearly 4,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, 12 picks. But ever since then, it's been kind of off and on, just been a bit average. All right. And with Baltimore, I mean, you got John Harbaugh, who Baltimore's never really been like a terrible team under him, but it's a point where you don't want to get stuck in mediocrity, finishing 8-8, 9-7. Sometimes make the playoffs, but more times than not, you're just going to get bounced in the wild card. So eventually you got to show progress, and I think that's what they did with drafting Lamar Jackson. And, I mean, you got to think that with them bringing in RG3 as the backup quarterback, that it is Lamar Jackson's time to shine next year. Obviously not this upcoming year because Joe Flacco's still the guy, but there's going to be a point this season where if Joe Flacco isn't producing and the Ravens aren't winning ball games, then you got to think that they're going to end up pulling him, right? I mean, even if, let's say that Flacco wasn't playing well and they still were winning ball games, I still think maybe you still pull him. Okay? And with the Ravens, it's just a matter of they've never really had a dynamic offense. Okay? They've been more so a team where we're going to run the ball. We're not going to be too flashy with the receivers, but we're going to pretty much depend on our defense and get the job here done on offense. But I think now, drafted Lamar Jackson, that kind of changes the, I don't want to say culture, but the outlook of their offenses going forward. Because, I mean, bringing in a dynamic player like Lamar Jackson, you're probably expecting your offense to look a whole lot better and start putting up points. Okay? That's the only reason why you bring in a player like that. I'm very curious to see, too, what they end up doing with the receivers. I mean, they got Crabtree there. Brought in Willie Snead. All right? Ended up losing Mike Wallace this offseason to Philly. But, I don't know. I think that Lamar Jackson for this team would be a solid option. Obviously, you got to let him develop a bit. But, I mean, let's say that Flacco comes out. Because we all know that Flacco can be a good quarterback. Okay, that's not really something that is up for debate. We've seen that he's had the ability before, and it's just a matter of, I guess, getting back to it. All right, he's been in the league for about 10 years. This is going to be his 11th. And, I mean, even if Flacco, let's say, doesn't work out in Baltimore, he still could find himself on a team next year who maybe this year they see, oh yeah, we got a solid squad, it's just quarterback is not working out. You could see Flacco end up on a team like that. So, I mean, even if this was his last season with Baltimore, he's still got a possibility of, I mean, playing this league for about 5 more years, honestly. All right? Maybe take an Alex Smith route. All right? If it's not really working out, go play for someone else, win ball games there. And I think that maybe that is just what it is. It's just need a change of scenery for both teams. So we'll end up seeing what's going on, but I don't know. You've seen with Big Ben, he's taking Mason Rudolph under his wing. He's going to help him out during OTAs and stuff. Obviously, it didn't seem like that was the case a few weeks ago or whatever, but I'm not too sure we're going to be seeing that with Joe Flacco and Lamar Jackson. And I understand why, I guess, just given the fact that Lamar Jackson is, I guess, poised to take Flacco's job after this year. So you just have to wait and see how it all goes down. But that's all I got to say about that. I mean, there's not really too much going on in the NFL right now. OTAs are just starting up. Like I said yesterday, we talked about Hunter Henry, tight end for the Chargers, blowing out his knee. Probably ended up seeing Antonio Gates back with the Chargers, and rightfully so. I mean, Chargers never really needed to get rid of him, I don't think. All right? I understand that he's old and whatnot, but I don't think he was really asking for tons of money or anything like that. So I think it helps to keep a guy like that on the roster, given that he spent his whole career there. Plus, I mean, you got the chemistry with Phillip Rivers too. So, yeah, more than likely he will end up with the Chargers once again. All right. But like I said, nothing else really going on. So we'll just wrap it up there. Next up, we'll be talking about the All-NBA teams, see who was snubbed, who wasn't. So stay tuned for that, and I'll be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. So far today, we've talked Cavs-Celtics Game 5. Celtics won that one. I believe it was 98-83, 95-83, something like that. Neither team really played well on the offensive end, but it's just a point where I think it was coaching is what came down to it for Cleveland there. Second segment, we talked a bit about Dez Bryant still being unsigned and also talked about the little QB situation we got over in Baltimore. All right. And then now we're going to be talking about the All-NBA teams that were announced. All right, we've had the rookie teams announced, defensive teams announced. Now is the one where we get to argue about it the most. All right, so looking at it, the All-NBA first team is James Harden, Damian Lillard, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis. All right, and I think that list is fine. I don't think anyone there was really snubbed. Actually, well, we'll talk about people who were stumped after we announce all teams. All right, but nonetheless, as far as these 5 guys that got selected there, I mean, James Harden is going to be the MVP winner this season. Okay, at least that's what it's looking like. He should be. All right, with LeBron, I mean, this is just business as usual. LeBron's always been one of the best players in the league, if not the best. I mean, he's a guy who can't win MVP year after year. But nonetheless, yeah, LeBron does deserve to be up there. Damian Lillard, this was probably the first year where I saw, I guess, Portland become something more than just a mediocre team that makes the playoffs. And I guess, I don't know if I could really say that, just given that, actually, no, because usually Portland's a team who ends up finishing like around the 7th spot, the 8th spot, the 6th spot, just around there usually, and getting bounced in the first round of the playoffs, which they did this year, but more so was one where you saw them finish as the 3 seed this year. All right, we're pretty much one of the best teams in the West. Obviously, wasn't on the level of a Warriors or Rockets team, but nonetheless, you saw progress, something that we haven't seen before, instead of them just being a team who's middle of the pack, and fine with that. So I'm fine with Damian Lillard making it there, and then with Anthony Davis, I mean, once DeMarcus Cousins went down, no one really gave the Pelicans a shot. All right. And then Anthony Davis pretty much just emerged into some type of super player. It was ridiculous. Okay. Eventually, at one point, had himself inserted into the MVP conversation. Obviously, I don't think anyone thought he was going to win it, but nonetheless, what he was doing for his team was what allowed him to make it into that conversation. So, I mean, I'm perfectly fine with him making it there, and then with him making the All-NBA first team, he now can become a Supermax player for the Pelicans once he's ready for a new deal. All right, I think that consists of about nearly $40 million a year. I think total of the contract would be like $235 or something like that, which is just honestly ridiculous. All right, and he's only 25 right now. By the time that's up, he'll probably be around 30, 31 years old. You're still up for another max deal after that if you're still continuing playing the way that you've played so far in your career. So Anthony Davis is one where he'll probably end up being the highest paid player in all of basketball. Could end up becoming the highest paid player in all of basketball twice. All right. But like I said, I mean, first team, perfectly fine with it, looking at it and all that. All those players deserve to be on there. So let's look at the second team. You had Giannis Antetokounmpo, Russell Westbrook, Joel Embiid, LaMarcus Aldridge, DeMar DeRozan. All right, I'm going to announce the second team, then the third team, and see maybe which players I would have liked to see, I guess, switched up or whatever. All right, and then for the third team, you had Steph Curry, Victor Oladipo, Karl Anthony Towns, Jimmy Butler, Paul George. Paul George good enough to make an All-NBA team this year? All right, was he? Because I know the team itself was pretty bad. Okay. Let's look at Paul George's stats actually this season. But nonetheless, I mean, looking at the Thunder, it was more so, it just seemed like there was more problems than not as far as the way they were playing. All right, so I guess this year he finished with nearly 22 points per game, nearly 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and half a block. So shot 43% from the field, 40% from 3. All right, so he ended up making it. And let's look at the players that were snubbed. So he made it in as a forward. So forwards that could have made it instead of him: Ben Simmons, Draymond. I guess I am fine with Paul George making it since he made it in as a forward. All right, seems like, let's see, you had Steph Curry making it, Victor Oladipo making it. Russell Westbrook, I guess, has to be a second-team player, just given that he finished the season with a triple-double. All right, so I'm fine with him being there. I'm thinking maybe Joel Embiid and Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, Joel Embiid and the Sixers did make it in as the third seed. All right, I think it was the Timberwolves made it in as the 8th. Yeah, so the Timberwolves made it in the 8th. So I guess, yeah, Joel Embiid deserves to be second team there. All right. Would you put Karl Anthony Towns or LaMarcus Aldridge over Karl Anthony Towns, though? I'm not so sure that I would. Okay. And I got to look at Karl Anthony Towns' year right here. So Towns put up 21 points, 54% from the field, 42% from 3, 12 rebounds, 2 assists, less like a 0.8 of a steal, and then nearly a block and a half. All right. LaMarcus Aldridge, let's see how he ended up doing this year. LaMarcus Aldridge was easily the Spurs' best player this season. All right. Probably his best year since he's been with the Spurs. And LaMarcus Aldridge finished with 23 points, 51% from the field, 29% from 3, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, half a steal, and a block. I think that I like Karl Anthony Towns for second team there. Okay. But then again, I mean, it's one where how much does team success really play into these votes? Okay, because if you look at it, actually, who would you say has the better team, I guess, on paper? Would it be the Timberwolves or would it be the Spurs? All right, and we can't forget, too, that the Timberwolves at one point, right before Jimmy Butler got hurt, were fighting for the 4 or 5 seed, somewhere around there, also the 3 seed they were looking at. All right, then Jimmy Butler gets hurt, and it's kind of like with the Timberwolves, they're not as deep a team as the Spurs. Okay? The Spurs are a team who's got a bench, and they got players who can contribute. The Timberwolves are a team who play their starters about 40-plus minutes a game and then throw in whatever 3 guys off the bench they want. All right, so I won't really put the Timberwolves finishing as the 8th seed on Towns. So yeah, I think I'm fine with me saying that he probably should have made the second team over LaMarcus Aldridge. All right, as far as guards, maybe you could have saw Victor Oladipo finish over DeMar DeRozan, but then again, DeMar DeRozan did have a real solid year this season. All right, and I mean, it also had me thinking, maybe he deserves a little bit more respect as far as being a top player in this league. All right, I understand that people will look to playoffs and will discredit him that way, but as far as the All-NBA teams go, this is more so a regular season award for these players. So Oladipo finished with 23 points, 47% from the field shooting, nearly 48, 37% from 3, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, 2.5 steals, and nearly a block. All right. DeMar DeRozan finished with 23 points, nearly 46% shooting, 31% from 3, 4 assists, actually, 4 rebounds, 5 assists. Victor Oladipo had 5 rebounds, 4 assists. And then DeRozan finished with a steal and no blocks. I think I'd like to see Victor Oladipo make it into the second team over DeMar DeRozan. All right, switch them. And again, I do understand that DeMar DeRozan finished as the number 1 seed with the Raptors, but it's a point where you also had Kyle Lowry there. Victor Oladipo, I mean, his second best player was either Bogdanovich, I'd say, or maybe Darren Collison, possibly. It depends whatever day of the week they had starting there. I mean, you got to think that you put Oladipo on the Raptors, they still finish as the 1 seed. So, yeah, I would have liked to see Oladipo finish as a second-team guard instead of DeMar DeRozan. But then again, I mean, like I said, it depends how much they put team success into this, I guess, looking at it. One player who I think was snubbed, but then again, it's tough to figure out a way to get him in there, was Chris Paul. All right. Chris Paul finished the season with 18 points, 46% shooting, 38% from 3, 5 rebounds, 8 assists, nearly 2 steals. I mean, it's just, where do you put him on this list? Okay. I wouldn't put him in over Damian Lillard. I don't think you can put him in over Russell Westbrook, given that Russell Westbrook finished this year with a triple-double. And then, are you really going to put him over Steph Curry? Okay. And I got to see how many total games, I guess, these guys ended up playing, which I'll look at right now, actually. And I guess it does come down to either Steph Curry or Chris Paul as far as guys you wanted to have in there. All right. Because with Russell Westbrook having a triple-double, that automatically, like, you have no choice but to put him in there, okay? Given the season that Damian Lillard had, you had to put him in there too. So really, idealistically, it comes down to Steph and Chris Paul. And Steph only played 51 games this year. Let's see. Chris Paul played 58. So Chris Paul played 7 more games. Let's see. Chris Paul finished this year with 47% from the field, like I said. 18.7 points per game. We already went over his. Steph still finished this year with 7 less games played with 26 points. All right. Nearly 2 steals. Let's see. His free throw percentage was 92%. And then from 3, he shot 42. From the field, he shot nearly 50. So you know what? I guess, yeah, Chris Paul is a snub, but there's not really anywhere else I guess you could put him. All right. So it's one of those where, I mean, there's a lot of different guys who had solid seasons this year. As far as other guys who might have gotten snubbed, I mean, you got Rudy Gobert, who didn't end up making it. I'm not sure I'd put him in over Embiid, Towns, or Davis. Actually, I wouldn't. All right. And Rudy Gobert, I mean, he's had a bit of a weird career as far as respect given to him, as far as the type of player he is. So, I mean, maybe he can win the Defensive Player of the Year this year, and that'll change some things up. Rudy Gobert missed it. Kyrie Irving missed out, but I mean, Kyrie didn't play enough games. He was injured for a lot of the season, so I understand that. Ben Simmons, I don't think he's up there yet. Al Horford, like I said, I'm not putting him in over Towns. I'm not putting him in over Embiid or Aldridge. Actually, I don't know. Maybe think about putting him in over Aldridge, just given that, I mean, the Celtics were playing without Hayward and Kyrie for most of the season, and Al Horford pretty much did take up a leadership role there. But it's not something where it's like, oh yeah, he definitely got snubbed, and then I'm not putting him in over Davis. And the other guys who got votes, or I guess, yeah, votes, there's guys like Nikola Jokic, Andre Drummond, Clint Capella, Draymond Green, Kyle Lowry, Steven Adams, and then Donovan Mitchell. I mean, no one really got snubbed except for Chris Paul, but then again, I mean, maybe you can't put him in over any of the point guards that make it. And as far as the other guards, I mean, you're not going to put him over James Harden. You're not going to put him over DeMar DeRozan. And I don't think you can put him over Victor Oladipo. Maybe Jimmy Butler. That's a possibility. But nonetheless, I mean, what can you do? All right. I mean, this is, as far as looking at how many times these guys have made the All-NBA selections, LeBron's 14th time, Kevin Durant's 8th. All right, his 6th time making the first team. LeBron's 12th time making the first team. James Harden's got 5. Anthony Davis got 3, along with Damian Lillard, who's got 3. Russell Westbrook, this is his 7th team. His 5th second team. Marcus Aldridge has made 5. And then you got Steph, who has made 5. And Paul George with 4. So I guess those are your leaders as far as being continuously selected. But that's all I got to say about that. Next up, we're going to be talking about anything else going on in the world of sports. So stay tuned, and I'll be right back.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. So far today, we've talked Celtics-Cavs Game 5. Celtics ended up winning that one. They're now 3-up, 3-2, heading back to Cleveland, or heading to Cleveland, I should say, for Game 6 on Friday. I'm not sure who I want to go with in that game. I mean, logically, you'd go with the home team, just given how bad the road team has played in each of these games. But it's a point where, I don't know, it just feels weird, the little energy of this series so far. I mean, you can't really predict anything, just given that each coach seems to pretty much have a bad game from time to time in the series. And how these players just don't seem to perform unless they're playing at home. I mean, you got George Hill, who looked like the top NBA veteran point guard in the Games 3 and Games 4. Game 5, he comes out and, I mean, what happened? All right, Ty Lue. I mean, realize that, you know what, playing Kyle Korver a bunch of minutes is going to help our team. Barely plays him for Game 5. What happened? All right. But now we got Golden State versus Houston. This is going to be a close one. I don't know, it's tough to predict these games. All right? They've all been blowouts except for one. I mean, we've seen 2 different Houston teams show up in this series. Okay. They showed up for Game 2. They showed up for Game 4. I don't think there's really an in-between with this team. All right, so now I guess we got to wait and see what team is showing up for Game 5. All right. And, I mean, it all comes down to, I mean, like you said, last game, James Harden dropped 30. But he didn't really play well in the second half. And I think I'm not really going out on the edge saying that or anything like that. Okay. He didn't play that well in the second half, and the Rockets still won. Wouldn't you think that they have a chance tonight? I do. All right. I'm not really sure who I'm going with tonight as far as my pick. I guess I'm just going to talk through it. I mean, it's a point where the Rockets pretty much just got to have the same game plan as they did in Game 4. All right. They only went with a 7-man rotation. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to do that tonight. We still got to see if Andre Iguodala is going to be playing. Steve Kerr said he's currently iffy for tonight, which means he has no clue, I guess. I mean, he could not. And with Andre Iguodala, I mean, yeah, there's a point of, yeah, he could be out there, but is his injury going to affect him at all? All right, is he going to be the same defensive stopper that he was before he got hurt in the series? All right, and those are all things you got to take into account. Right now, I'm looking at it. Vegas has got Houston favored by a point in this one. Okay. Not very often where you see the Warriors not favored. And same with the Celtics, all right? Not very often where, I mean, you see the Cavs aren't not favored. They weren't favored for Game 1 or Game 5. That was Boston. They ended up taking it. Is that a sign for tonight? Probably not. All right. And just given the Warriors right now, Steph Curry seems to be finding his shot. Kevin Durant's been about as consistent as you would hope for. Klay Thompson is a guy where I think he hasn't been at his best this series, and that's one thing that's helped the Rockets too. Because obviously when you're already trying to guard Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, then you got to worry about Klay Thompson. That's going to be a big problem. So Klay being as quiet as he's been so far this series has kind of helped the Rockets, I guess, focus more so on Steph and KD rather than everyone else. All right. And one thing too is I don't think we've seen Clint Capella be as dominant as he was in this postseason, this series. And I think that's kind of the Warriors just taking him out of there. All right, with him going small the entire time. I mean, Clint Capella, as great as a rim protector he is, can't go out to the three-point line and try and guard a Kevin Durant or anyone else, even a Draymond Green for that matter out there. So, I mean, we'll see what ends up happening. I'll definitely be watching tonight. I'm still kind of stuck on my pick. I kind of want to go with Houston, but it's just a matter of, can I? And I think I am going to end up going with Houston. And I've been pretty off with these predictions as far as these game-by-game predictions for these series. And I think I've done pretty well as far as picking the series so far in the postseason. Let's see, the first round of the Eastern Conference, I think I got them all right. I went 3-1. First round of the Western Conference, I picked the Jazz, I picked the Rockets, I picked the Warriors, and I picked the Pelicans. So I went 4-0 there. So I started off, 7-1? Second round, we went with the Warriors. It's 8-1. Rockets, 9-1. All right. And then over out east, I picked the Celtics, 10-1. I picked the Raptors, 10-2. All right. Now we're here. So right now I'm 10-2, and it's looking pretty good. I mean, I picked the Warriors to win. That's a little up for grabs. Celtics are a game away from getting my prediction right there. We're doing pretty well. All right. But as far as the game by game goes, I have no clue. All right. But I think I am going to go with the Rockets, just given the momentum that they're on. I mean, winning Game 4 was about as big as you could, as big as they could get. All right, there would be a difference if they ended up winning Game 3 and lost Game 4. I think winning Game 4 and just heading straight home after that is something that keeps the momentum up, rather than winning a Game 3 and then losing a Game 4. So we'll see what ends up happening. But yeah, I'm going to end up going with the Rockets. I'm expecting James Harden. And the key for the Rockets is James Harden's effort on defense, okay? If he puts up the same performance that he did on, Monday, I believe, or Tuesday? Yeah, on Tuesday. And the Rockets all got all the shot in the world to win. And it's also about moving the ball and getting good shots, okay? Instead of playing this ISO pull-up at the three-point line type of basketball, all right? It's the plays where Chris Paul is holding the ball late in the shot clock, then they send the double team, and he sends out the pass to an open Trevor Ariza, stuff like that, all right? And I think they can do it. And right now, I mean, I'm not going to say the Warriors are a little vulnerable, but I think you can smell blood here with this team. All right. So we got to see what ends up happening with Andre Iguodala. And I mean, you got Steve Kerr still talking about Klay Thompson's injury status. He said he's playing, but if you're still talking about it, that means there's still a problem there. All right. So I think everything going in the series right now points into the Rockets' favor. I mean, you take Game 5, you got 2 games guaranteed at least to close out this series. So we'll see what ends up happening now. And like I said, if Warriors end up winning this game, then I think it's over in 6. But if the Rockets end up winning this one, then I say it comes back to Game 7. And I guess I'd have to stick with my Warriors in 7, or my Warriors pick. I mean, I picked Warriors in 5, but obviously that's not going to end up happening. So we'll see there. Let's see anything else going on in the world of sports right now. We're still talking about baseballs over in the MLB, okay? Talking about how there's a bit of a lift. Home runs are getting hit farther and farther, all right? And they're not blaming it on the baseballs being juiced or anything like that, but I mean, it's more so a point where this is a good thing for baseball, okay? And it's not players just swinging for the fences, but it's more so just something's happening with these balls, and they're going farther and farther, all right? And like I said, this is good for baseball. I mean, baseball's got problems within its game already. Just the season length is ridiculous, okay? 162 games is way too much. You see the players who don't like it. I mean, of course, if you're a fan, which I am, but I mean, I do get the point of, you know what? I always go back to it. I could miss about 62 games of a season and still catch 100 of them. Okay? And I think that's where it's a bit much. I could miss half of the season and still watch 81 games. All right? I think that might be a bit of a problem. And that's also tough. I mean, as a professional athlete and all that, you're pretty much on the go constantly. Okay? You don't really get too many breaks. All right, people say, oh, they signed up for this and all that. Yeah, that's right. But, of course, the game could always be improved. All right, and I don't think, and maybe it's a point where maybe the MLB loses money if they shorten the season. But that's one of the things I think they need to work on. And then as far as the baseballs, like I said, I mean, it's good for baseball. Fans tend to want to watch the 5-4 games, the 7-6 games, stuff like that. Me, I'm more of let me watch the pitching duel instead, okay? I could do without the runs and all that, but if I see one guy's about 7 innings in, only giving up about 3 hits and got about 8 strikeouts, that's something that makes me excited about baseball. And again, I am in the minority there, so I have no problem with these balls going deep. All right. But either way, let's take a look at the MLB standings. We haven't in quite some time. Red Sox, Yankees, Astros still pretty much dominating the AL right now. Right now, the Boston Red Sox are currently in first in the AL East. Game and a half up on the Yankees, who are 31-15. Over in the AL Central, you got the Cleveland Indians, who are 24-23 and up 2 games in that division. That's probably the worst division in baseball right there. Over out west, you got the Astros, who are 32-18, 2 games up on the Mariners, 4 games up in the Angels, and look at those A's. All right, currently 25-24. The A's are a team where they'll develop their farm system, and once those players are ready to play, they're out there. The A's are looking good. Once those players get good enough, you trade them, and then you pretty much repeat the cycle there. But, I mean, the Mariners are playing good baseball here. Going to be without Robinson Cano for quite some time due to his suspension, so we'll see how that affects them. But nonetheless, I mean, it's business as usual for the Astros there. Over in the National League East, I mean, a bit of a surprise. You got the Atlanta Braves currently in first, all right? And it's pretty much just a bunch of young guys out there leading them. You got the Phillies, who are currently in second, Washington Nationals in third, and the Mets, after their hot start, a little bit back down to earth, 24-21, but 3.5 games back of the Braves, so nothing really to worry about there. Over there in the NL Central, you got the Milwaukee Brewers, who are in first, 31-19. Cardinals and Pirates are 3.5 games back, and you got the Cubs, who are 4 games back. Over out west in the NL, this division's been a bit of a disappointment too. Rockies are 26-24, Diamondbacks are 25-24. The Giants are 24-26. I feel like we all could have saw that coming, just given that they were bringing in the 2012 All-Star team. And then the Dodgers, who are a bit disappointing, 22-27, but are 3.5 games back, just given how weak that division currently is. So that's what the standings are looking like right there. And then yesterday we had the Washington Capitals, once again, playing about as well as you could, advancing to the Stanley Cup Final, winning 3-0 or 4-0 against Tampa Bay yesterday. All right, Ovechkin got it started. I was watching the game in the first period. Dude gets it started, and he's got that one spot right there to the left where he's always at. I don't understand why teams don't game plan for that more, okay? If Ovechkin's standing there, get in front of him. All right, but nonetheless, we got Vegas versus Washington in the Stanley Cup Final. I mean, this is perfect for the NHL, okay? Both decent markets. Both teams haven't been here. One team hasn't been here in a while. The other, never been here. Ovechkin's first Stanley Cup Final, I believe. So we'll see if Ovechkin can finally get it done. For me, I mean, I think Ovechkin probably is the best player in the NHL, but given that he has none of the accolades or anything like that as far as championships, that's why I guess Sidney Crosby gets the nod. All right, but we'll see what ends up happening. But like I said, Washington versus Vegas in the Stanley Cup Final. But either way, we're going to wrap it up here. Today we talked Celtics Cavs Game 5. We talked Dez Bryant, Joe Flacco a bit. We talked the All-NBA teams, and then for this segment previewed Game 5 between Houston and Golden State, and also talked about a couple of other things going on in the world of sports. So thanks for listening to the GSMC Sports Podcast. As always, I am your host, Jesse Tapia. We'll be back tomorrow, so stay tuned, and I'll talk to you later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.